it gave me confidence when I didn't really have it myself because I didn't even know what the hell I was doing. Clearly I knew enough, but he knew that way before I did.
Most leaders never have to answer this question. What happens when the person you are going to hold accountable is also the person you're handing your company over to? And just to add a little bit more to this, what if it's a relative? Today, we get into what it actually takes to build something worth passing down and what it costs to do it right. I'm Dr. Gary, and this is Leading from the Front. My guests today are Bill and Ryan Murphy. Yep. Same last name. It's a father-son team that's behind the Rodeco Metal Finishing Company, a manufacturing business that has been running out of Sanford, North Carolina since 1960. Bill bought the company in 1982 and spent decades building it. Ryan stepped in full-time in 2008 and has been president since 2017. What they've navigated through, the succession, the accountability, and what it means to lead something when the stakes are personal is exactly what this episode is about. Welcome, Bill and Ryan Murphy. This is Dr. Gary meeting with you again because actually we did a podcast during COVID in 2020. And I'm trying to think, Ryan, when did you take over the company full time?
2017, January 2017.
2017. Yep. So you were already 3 years into it. And this is an update. You know, this is 6 years later, almost 9 years after you took over the company. And what I would like to do today is get into a little bit about how the transition has gone, what's changed since we last talked in 2020. And, you know, personally, it really bothers me that your father turned the company over to you, Ryan, because he became your mentor. And all the work that I did for 5 years, transitioning you from sales to sales manager to general manager to owner, took over, and now you use him as your mentor. So how's that going?
From a journey standpoint, from buying it to the update from COVID, it's really interesting. There was a big part of me that wanted to prove myself, right? Not just my dad's. And so it's kind of taken more of a turn over the years of self-reflection saying, oh, you know what? I could really use him more on this type of project. So I've actually brought him more in as a mentor on very specific large growth projects, just as a very trusted mentor on that. So I've actually been using him a lot more than I did in years past.
Well, that's interesting. Bill, did you feel that like you had to kind of step back and let Ryan get his legs under him? And
well, I always felt I didn't want to be in the way or, and step back so others could step forward, really. And as far as we don't have monthly meetings like mentoring or quarterly reporting or anything like that. Like Ryan said, he pulls me in if he has a customer project here or a situation there, and that can be on and off. Yeah, I think that's working out well.
So the role has changed a lot, right? You went from really being the CEO and the owner back when I was working with you in 2010, 2011. What I would consider mentor, they have three different levels that we often don't talk about in leadership. And that's a sponsor who is somebody that brings you into the company. They see the talent in you and they work with you to try to elevate you as they elevate. And that's a sponsor. You have a coach who, just like the coach on the sideline of a sporting event, Ryan, you played collegiate sports. You had a coach and their success and your success is connected. So a coach's success and the player's success is connected, just like in a company. But then there's a mentor, and a mentor is somebody from the outside, somebody that they don't have any skin in the game. Your success is your success. And I think that it's fascinating how, Bill, your role has gone from kind of coach and sponsor. I mean, you wanted your son to succeed, right? You wanted to elevate him. And I thought that what you did is a model for how people need to do this, where, Ryan, you worked somewhere else, right? You didn't come right into Rodeco right out of college, did you? And this is the model. You work somewhere else, you learn some things, you understand some things that you can bring to the company. And then you started in sales. You started at the bottom. You had an individual contributor's position. Then you became the sales manager, general manager, and owner over the course of time. And the relationship that I've seen between the two of you as you each transition through those roles and through that model has been a model of consistency and a model that other people can learn from. Did you plan it that way, Bill? Did you see this come out, or did it just kind of evolve based on Ryan's growth over time?
I guess I saw it because I had a lot of confidence in Ryan. It would be smooth because we had the same values, we had the same principles, and that makes a big difference. And those values translate into the company, what it's all about. So I thought it would be an easy, straightforward transition. Ryan's competitive, okay, and he wants to win, and that's important.
Yeah. So Ryan, let's talk about how you're athletic and sports. I mean, you were a collegiate level soccer player.
Yep.
Which, if I remember correctly, weren't you the captain of the team?
Yes. Yep. Senior year.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So a little bit of leadership opportunity there to be the captain. Let's go back and see, when you were the captain of the soccer team, what did you learn that you use today?
For me, I was never the best at just the motivation type of just putting words in and getting everyone rah-rah. It was get out there and play your hardest and just be competitive and kind of show the way. That was kind of more of my style than anything else. Calling out when I think at that competitive, when you're in that mode, in that zone, in the competitive atmosphere, you just kind of know what's needed and you call it out, right? It's not a negative in my mind. It's just like, hey, this is what's needed here. And so to me, that's pretty natural. And that was a little harder to bring into a professional environment, I guess, but definitely a needed aspect from the competitive side. When you're in a game, it's a little different because we're not just all in it as just amateur soccer players that just want to compete against that other team over there. This is our livelihood and our jobs. But at the same time, you got to know when to bubble out that competitiveness to say, this is what's really needed for us to get the job done here. So I'd say those would be the two biggest things.
Well, in simple leadership terms, a couple of things that you just said. First is role modeling. You have to role model what you expect from others. You did that on the field. And I will say my experience with you is you did it as a salesperson. You were the number one salesperson. You came in later than a lot of other people, and you accelerated the sales to a point where your sales were greater than anybody else's on the team. So the beauty of that is when you became the sales manager, you had gone through that process. You know what it took, and you know what it took to be the best within the organization. And then holding people accountable is the other part of it, where you say, when you see somebody on the field that's not giving the effort, or they're not trying as hard or not playing their position properly, we call that accountability, and you can hold somebody accountable for fulfilling their role. And I think that underneath all of this is the one thing that Angela Duckworth talks about in Grit. There's only one characteristic of all of the things that we do in our life that's consistent with success, and that's effort. It's not brains. It's not knowledge about things. It's not anything else other than effort. What I've seen out of you is a consistent effort, and I think that obviously Bill is a little bit prejudiced about his son, maybe, but he sees the characteristics in you, and that's what makes us successful. How have you been able to take that level of effort and competition beyond Rodeco? Because I know you're into other things. You've bought some property. You've done some other things to provide for your family and to look further and further into the future. How has that served you? And do you see the connections there even today?
I think a lot of it comes down, for me, the connections I find a lot are understanding how to work well with others. And I guess there's some project management stuff that would go into it as well. But, one, knowing what the goal is. Like, what are you trying to achieve? Just buying a property doesn't mean a whole lot if it's not, you don't have a strategy for it. So what is the goal? We're trying to win this game or set ourselves up for a certain number down in our future. What is the objective? And then understanding not everyone ticks the same way that I do, or that everyone's their own unique person, and how do you connect with that person? What's the attitude you're bringing every day? And those are the kind of things that what I do in properties, or even still playing soccer or whatnot, is how do you connect with those people? Because we're at our best when we're all working together, all on the same page, pulling in the same direction. And that goes across the board, whether it's the adult soccer league I'm in right now, it's me and my business partners on the property acquisition stuff, or if it's coworkers that I have here at the shop.
All right, so let's get into the nitty gritty here, because you just hit an important point, which is that you have to adjust your style to the needs and expectations of other people, right? So you learned that over time. I think you have children, don't you? And how old are those children?
17 and 10.
Oh my goodness. So are the 10-year-old and the 17-year-old exactly the same?
They're exactly the opposite.
Exactly. So how, as a parent, have you learned through this journey of leadership, okay, from being on the field as a captain in soccer to leading a business, been able to apply the same kinds of things with your children?
The first one is you can't change people, right? They are who they are. And that was, especially when my daughter was young, she's the oldest, that was an eye-opener for me of like, no, she is who she is. I have to change who I am to help her be as confident or as good as she can be as a person, right? So you can show the ways, but you can't really change who they are. And so when my son helped with him, it was completely different. So I really had to adjust how I thought about raising him because he has very different needs than my daughter. And actually, it was harder with him to begin with because I was too stuck in the previous parent mode that I had learned already, I guess. And not until I let some things go off of my shoulders and not worry as much because he is completely different than my daughter. It lifted a lot of weight and stress off of my shoulders to kind of finally see that with the way that he is as a person compared to my daughter. And while I learned it once, I had to relearn that again because, you don't just figure it out. It's a constant learning, whether that's with each employee that comes in is somebody new as well. It's not all cookie cutter, but yeah, it's always a bigger impact and a heavier weight when it is your kids and not a coworker, an employee. So that was definitely a change for me. And it made my life a lot more enjoyable when you don't let certain things stress you out that you're putting on yourself.
You've said it earlier, you have to move to where the other person is, not get them to force to move to where you are, right?
Yeah.
So let's take that and flip it for a second, Bill, because I'm sure that you've experienced the same thing with your children, one of them being here with us today. Over the course of time, it's been, since I've worked with you, 16 years. How have you seen your role change? And what are some of the things that have maybe surprised you about this journey that you've been on with Ryan for the last 15 or 16 years?
My role was basically primarily to set things up and get things in position, so that we could have a clean cut off and transfer. We're talking physically about, we redid the office, that kind of stuff. And then when we were ready to move back in the office, Ryan moved into the office that I had. Okay. I got a new roof on the building because I still owned the building. It was more along, you kind of set the stage and then you step back.
Look, here's a physical thing, right? When he moved into your old office.
Yes.
How did that feel?
That felt fine. I mean, I didn't feel scary or anything like that because while the renovation was going on, we were sharing an office upstairs. Okay. Mm. And I think that was an important time together. We were up there with a couple of the accounting girls. That didn't bother me at all. And I liked that he was on the first floor of my office. So if somebody came in and they had a question, he was more convenient to ask than me. Because a lot of times we ask the convenient person, not the right person. What things?
Yeah. So again, I like the flow of this transition. You're in the same office together for a while and then renovate the place. I can remember coming into your office when it was all renovated and changed. It was really a nice looking office. And now Ryan's in that downstairs office. And again, it's a transition and it was done so well that from the outside looking at it, it seemed to go very, very smoothly. When did it not go smoothly? I mean, I can't believe that you've never had any conflict. When did you have a difference of opinion and how did you work that stuff out? Ryan's got a big smile on his face.
I don't have a great answer to that. I was interested to hear what he might say.
Okay, you want to wait for Dad to say something? Let's hear from Bill. Go ahead, Bill.
I don't think we had any conflict. I didn't want to override anything. I want him to make his own mistakes, okay? Because you learn just as much in a loss if you correct yourself than you do in a win. So, and I didn't want to come in and judge and say that you're not doing this right or not doing that right.
Can you remember a specific time, though, when you thought, I don't know about this one?
Well, I always blurt out stupid stuff and say, you need to be looking more at the balance sheet or that kind of stuff, okay? But I don't harp on it. I don't think. But I really don't, I didn't have to say, hey, you need to do this or do that. I might have said a couple times, you got too many salesmen or you got too few salesmen or something like that.
Anything to say about that, Ryan?
I don't really know how he did it, to be honest. So when we transitioned, in what he said, the physical thing with the offices, he kept an office upstairs and he could go in that office much. We probably saw him 10 times over the next year in that office.
So he stepped away. He stayed out of your way.
It wasn't harping on, let me see financials or anything. It was, hey, this is yours. I'm here when you need me. Now, if you asked some of the longtime employees what were the main hardships in the transition, they might have some different answers than us. But between us, very little. I would bring him in on a couple projects, but there really wasn't any type of what are you doing type of moment. And I don't know how he did it, because I'm sure he felt that way a ton, because we're very different. One, I had a lot to learn and he had a lot of experience. And two, we're different in what makes us tick. You know, he is a lot more analytical. He's all on the balance sheet. I know I want to be better at that. And a lot of times that's where I bring him in, is those discussions, but it was never, hey, you're failing at you're not doing this enough type of conversations. And it gave me a lot of confidence. When I say I don't know how he did it, I appreciate it. He saw something. To me, it was just run around as fast as you can, try to learn as much as you can. It was chaotic in my brain and in my everyday operation of it. So it might have come across to others, but it was still just, for him, there was just this, I felt just a supreme confidence that he had. Why would he be making this decision, stepping away from this thing he's built without having that desire or need to jump back in and feel like he has to help? That's a testament to him. It gave me confidence when I didn't really have it myself, because I didn't even know what the hell I was doing.
Right.
Well, I felt like I didn't know what I was doing. Clearly I knew enough, but at the time, but he knew that way before I did.
The company still had the same values. Okay. It still had the same strategic planning. It still had the forward thinking. So it doesn't necessarily be 100% dependent upon one individual. Yes, that one individual has to reinforce those values mostly. Okay. But the company had enough momentum in itself. Okay. And it had some established employees that, were moving in that direction.
Yeah. So you felt that you had given him the foundation that was needed in order to succeed, and just let him see what he would do with it, right? And I think that that's a really important point, that in a family business, in the kinds of transition that you went through, that the advice is there comes a point where you can't slowly kind of step away. You just need to step away. I think what I loved hearing about what you said, Bill, was just need to let him fail at times and learn from those failures. And I'm sure that with a little bit of a safety net, Bill, you keep an eye on things to make sure that the failure didn't put the company under. But so you kind of keep an eye on things a little bit, but you do it at a distance.
A number of people were surprised when I said, no, Ryan owns the company 100% now. They thought I would be overlooking his shoulder, or hold him responsible with boards or meetings or something like that. No, some people said, hey, he should be paying a big high price on it so he has more skin in the game. I said, where's he going to get that money from? And that would probably hurt the business, not help the business. It was basically went from 100% my ownership to 100% his ownership. It wasn't a gradual thing like some people do.
Yeah, but I want to point out that happened over years of executing a plan from, as I've said before, individual contributor to sales manager to general manager. And in each one of those positions, which I was involved with and watching this for years until Ryan became general manager. And then when you bought the company, that's when you said, okay, I need to step away and let Ryan do his thing. But basically, Ryan, you were in a 5, 6, 7 year training program is really what it was. But it's interesting what you said, Ryan. The day you take over, and you really can look at it with a little bit of fear, a little bit of anxiety at least, right? A little bit of nervousness, because the question is, okay, I think I know what I'm doing, but do I know what I'm doing? And the only way that we can get confidence is, I always talk to people about this all the time in business. Confidence comes from two things, all right? It comes from experience and it comes from the application of skills. But you have to learn the skills, attach it to the experience, to each unique situation. Brian, what do you think, if you look back on the transition, all the things from soccer to working in another business to going through the transition of sales management and general manager, what do you think are one or two really key things that you learned during that process that helped you be successful today?
We touched a little bit on some of it, but I think attitude is a big piece of what has helped me be successful. And because it's how you show up for everyone else.
Well, talk about what attitude you're talking about. What do I see Ryan walking in the door? What's your attitude?
I'm going to make sure that I'm telling everyone hello. I'm bringing in a positiveness. Like, hey, even when some things are very stressful from a project standpoint, or we just lost a large customer, or there's some deadlines that we have to meet, it's coming in consistent and positive and not wearing some of those stresses on my sleeve, because those can go out to everyone else. I also think people receive feedback in a better light when it's coming from not just a positive standpoint. You can't have everything sound positive, but when they know you care. So when you can connect with your employees and know that you care, because that's how you show up every single day with them, then I find that you're a lot more receptive to feedback on whether we can improve a behavior, or we need to hit a deadline, or whatever the day might call for. So I would say a consistent attitude and letting people know that you care.
Yeah.
Another thing would be the connecting people with who they are, and really identifying when there's going to be some issues within. I used to get pretty stubborn and say, hey, I can see this vision where I'm going to make this work. Whether it's an employee, hey, they're bringing a lot of positive things to the table, I can deal with some of these negative things that are being brought to the table. It's one thing for me to deal with it, because in my personality that I can get past those things pretty easily, but not everyone sees things in the same way. And there can be some negative impacts for me being stubborn, I guess. So I've had to learn to say, okay, don't keep trying to fit this square peg in this round hole, even though you can see that it can work out. I'm doing more detriment in other areas. So identifying that type of behavior for myself is a big learning piece for me. And because I spent way too much time trying to be right. And I think that type of behavior can be at the detriment to the team.
Yeah, so being right, the ego gets in the way, but there's a fine line between stubborn and persistent.
Yeah, you see the vision, you want to lead towards that, but at some point, you're not always going to be correct. Change course, or whatever it is, a little bit faster than, how do you identify when you really need to dig your heels in and say, this is where we're going, versus being open-minded to saying, yeah, maybe I need to adjust course.
Yeah. Hey, Bill, has there been a time when you've seen that before Ryan saw it, maybe asked a couple of questions or coached him in a way that said, you might want to consider this? I mean, as a mentor, that's part of what we do, is to just try to help people with what they see and their perception. Is there a time when you were able to do that?
I think I've been doing it all along, all his life, 46 years at different times, at different stages, at different ages. Jumping back to what you were talking about, an attitude, when I got out of the car here at work in the morning, it was game time. You had to have your game face on. You had to have your 1, 2, 3 priorities, in front of you. And no matter what was going on behind the scenes, you had to shift gears and be ready for game time. But Ryan has always been, all his coaches have said, oh, he's the easiest guy I've ever had to coach, etc. He listens first, and he understands and comprehends, and then he goes out and executes it. So he's a dream to coach.
Well, it's interesting to listen to all this, because when we do leadership development, we talk about the single most important thing that we work on is self-awareness. All right. And self-awareness as it applies to mindset. And mindset has a lot to do with, do you have your game face on when you walk in the door in the morning? And I'm going to go back to sports. I've talked to a lot of executives, and when they talk about hiring salespeople or hiring operations people, I say, well, find out if they played college sports. Because to your point, Ryan, you talk about attitude. You're playing a team that you're supposed to beat, and you're down 2-0, and you got 15 minutes left in the game. Does everybody walk around with their shoulders down and, we're going to lose? No, you still got 15 minutes. Come on, let's go. We got a chance to win this, right? Let's start playing up to our level of capabilities. And that mindset and that approach fits with business. It fits in any situation. And I don't know about you, but you feel it when you walk in the building with people. There's this energy that you can feel. And we do an exercise with organizations now that we can prove that we're connected with energy. And I don't understand how people can lead from a position of fear rather than a position of love. I just don't understand that. And, when I think of the work that the two of you are doing, there is no question that we always want to say, gee, I love my dad, I love my son. But you guys demonstrate it in everything in the way you do it. And turning over a business is not an easy thing to do. It's not easy for either one of you. All right. But I wanted to have you on this because I think that what you've described is a really, really effective model. Okay. It's not about being right or wrong, Ryan. It's about being effective, right? You start, I want to be right. Well, with people, there's no such thing, really. I talked about being right or wrong is only if it's immoral, illegal, or unethical. 99.9% of the time, we're not facing legal issues, moral issues, or ethical issues. We're facing everyday decisions with each other. And it's not about being right. It's about being effective as a leader. And I'm always fascinated with how the two of you have done this and gone through this process and doing this. But with that said, I have my final question for both of you. Okay. We have in our leadership program a process that we call a do-over. And what a do-over is we say, okay, you're going to learn coaching. You're going to learn how to coach somebody. They go, okay, so how do we coach? Well, coaching is a combination of asking questions, applying emotional intelligence to see what kind of response you're going to get, and go through a process of guiding someone through a problem-solving methodology so they can solve their own problem. That's the ideal approach to coaching. So we teach people this relatively complex human interaction of leadership called coaching. And most people screw it up the first few times they do it. They just they ask the wrong questions. They get tongue-tied. They don't know what question to ask. They sit there and explain, yeah, I'm sitting there and I know I'm supposed to coach and ask a question. I can't think of a question in my head. So we say, well, so what did you do? And they said, well, they went off and they did the thing. Well, I think the next day you need to do a do-over. You bring the person back in your office and you say, okay, I'm learning how to coach. Let's do this again. Let's try it again. Use the same topic and do it again. Okay. So here's my question for the two of you. If you could go back in history over the last 10, 15 years, we're not going to go into childhood, Bill. We're going to 10 or 15 years. If there was something that you could do over with Ryan, what would that be? And Ryan, if there was something that you could do over with Bill, what would that be?
One comes with thinking about more communication. I don't think you could over communicate it. And I think I would have to stress not the day-to-day problem or the week problem or what we're trying to correct. What's the end game? What's the objective? Okay. And keep that light bright out there in terms of what the end game is and where you're going to be, whether it's a year from now or later.
So you think that if you had, if something you could have done over is just to kind of remind Ryan of thinking of the longer term.
Right. That, and it doesn't take any talent to hustle. And you need to look at that in your employees and everything else.
Yeah. Ryan, what would you do over?
As a son, it doesn't have to just be 10 to 15 years when you're asking that question about.
Well, no, but I didn't want to get into the child psychology. Okay. So.
It's not child, but it's the every phase of life. You look back and like, oh yeah, that made sense. I wish I would have listened. Wish I would have heard that earlier from my parents. Right? Like they said it, but I generally have to listen. I have to live it and experience it for it to really sink in a lot of times. So with that basis, I think from a business standpoint, from taking over, hindsight from now to 2017, I would say if I were to do it over, I would be much more deliberate in making sure that I'm bringing him in more consistent to help me with the areas that he was very strong in that I know I'm not as strong in. And I would have been a lot more deliberate and not just learning on the job, but having a better baseline with his guidance behind that. So that, I've gotten a little more to where I start to struggle with it and then I bring him in, and I wish I would have done some of that earlier.
That's a great one, and something that I think that we can all learn from. That I'm gonna go to my military experience and talk about this. I mean, in the military, it's life or death, and what you don't want to do is assign one of the soldiers something they're bad at, because then the whole platoon's going to die. right? So they teach us that by breaking down the individual and building up the team. And I think that in business, we really miss the opportunity sometimes because of hierarchy and mindset and concepts of who's in charge and I'm supposed to make the decisions or whatever it might be, to not reach down into an organization and find the talents of the individual within the organization and draw those talents out regardless of what their position is. I have to put aside my ego and be able to say, I don't know how to do this. I need help. And so often in business and leadership, people that are in higher positions of leadership, they don't want to say they need help. They're thinking that makes them weak, but it makes the team strong.
Good point.
It makes the team so strong to be able to reach out, and it lifts them up and they go, oh, well, you think I'm good at this? Oh, yeah, I need you to do, Ryan, you find somebody that's really detail-oriented, they do project management really well. It might be somebody in the shop that you've never knew that they were good at that, right? So, it could be one of the drivers. It could be somebody in the office that does things that are beyond just the role that they're in. And I think that as leaders, as this world gets more complex, we need to become more and more and more aware and look for the talents that the people have that we work with, recognize those talents, put our ego aside, know I don't need to do it all, and to find those people, draw them out, and build this strong team. And I will say this, if you do that, you will get employees that'll stick around a long time.
Yep.
So that's some great advice, Ryan, to be able to, you said it a couple of times now, but able to put my ego aside, and I'm still learning how to do that.
Yep.
And aren't we all? Well, any final comments for this father-son team to wrap things up?
Just a big thank you to you, Gary.
Thanks for being on the show, Bill. Yeah. Well, we got it together, man. That's all that matters.
You guys have very different styles, and they work well for different scenarios and for different people and for yourselves. And I appreciate you, Gary. One, just what you've helped us accomplish in the past and some of the foundation you helped set for my success, and also for doing this and bringing us together in a conversation that we normally wouldn't have, the two of us, I guess. So this is, I'm appreciative of you, Gary.
Thank you, guys. Really appreciate it. Bill and Ryan Murphy, appreciate everything that you've contributed to this program, but also over the years and the friendship and the time that we spent together. And Bill, I think it's time to schedule another Italian dinner.
I think so. Give me, maybe in
Thanks a lot.
A bunch of stuff going on here in April. We'll get together for sure.
Okay.
Always enjoy it.
If this episode makes you think differently about what it means to build something worth handing down, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Follow Leading from the Front wherever you listen, and I'll see you in the next one.